the pleasure of introducing our next speaker. I'm going to read from his bio for a bit here because he's laid this all out nicely. He is an instrumental music teacher and music department instructional leader from the Fredonia School District. He directs the symphonic band, middle and high school jazz ensembles, and pit orchestra while serving as the AP Music Theory and JCC College Connections music instructor. He's an active member of the New York State School Music Association and the Chautauqua County Music Teachers Association, including as past president. Probably other offices as well. Best not to think of. Exactly. He's been nominated 4 times as a quarter or a semifinalist for the Music Educator Grammy Award, making it as high as the top 25. Despite his storied career and national accolades, his greatest achievement, though, is convincing his wife, Dana, to actually marry him. Together, they've expanded their family band to include their 3-year-old daughter, Eliza. While she has yet to commit to an instrument, I'm told she enjoys the jazz stylings of the Glenn Miller Band. In a county and a region full of so many very successful music programs, this respected and dedicated educator is responsible, at least partially, for Fredonia standing out as one of the best, perhaps anywhere. It's my distinct honor to introduce my friend, Mr. Andy Bennett.
Well, getting an introduction from Sean Laska is something I can check off my bucket list now. Thank you, Sean. So I hope you're ready for more discussion about COVID. Yes, everyone's favorite topic for a Thursday morning. So when the OG Andy Wheelock, invited me to speak at this presentation, I wasn't really sure what I was going to talk about. And then we started talking, and we came up with this idea of how we kept music alive during COVID. And then I did something that's a bit unusual for me. I procrastinated terribly. He came to see me on Friday, and he asked how things were going, and I said, ask me again on Monday. This weekend I was playing in an orchestra gig in central New York, and they put me up at a hotel. For the first time, it feels like since the 90s, I had a Saturday morning to myself. So I went for a walk on the campus at St. Bonaventure. Beautiful, centrally located, mountains all around you. And that's when I started doing voice memos to plan this presentation out. And I finally realized why this topic was so hard for me to pin down. It's incredibly emotional for all of us. Each of us has a story from this 4-year period of some kind of personal growth or trauma, and to have to actually sit and read through all the emails, see the progression from December 2019 to here we are today, was a wonderful, eye-opening experience for me. So I am grateful for the invitation, selfishly, just for a chance to reflect myself. So I want to take you back for a second. Now, I, of course, think of the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of musical season. If you know any music teachers, winter is the time of the musical. So I believe the first date there was when we first got an email from our superintendent that there's this COVID-19 thing happening. We're not sure it's going to be anything, but just put it on your radar. That was the night of our first SITS probe, the first time we sang through the music with our cast and our orchestra together. Now, about a week later, we would get the news that SUNY schools were going remote. Big news everywhere, but especially to us where our neighbor SUNY school is miles away. Another email comes out, SUNY's doing this, probably nothing's going to happen, nothing to worry about, just start planning hypothetically if you had to go remote. I'll never forget that was the first night we did a full run-through of the show and parent-teacher conferences. My department came in for an impromptu meeting and they said, Andy, what do you think of the odds are we go remote? And I said, almost zero, we won't do that. It would not be the first or last time that I was absolutely wrong. So after that, the night of our opening week of show, that Monday, schools began the process of going remote. We would never do that performance, despite attempts to think, well, this will just be a week or 2 weeks, and I'll never forget that show, Carousel. Great show, very dark, appropriate for a dark scene here as well. At Fredonia, it would take us 10 months to go back to in-person instruction at our high school level. So for 10 months, I need to figure out what the heck are we going to do? Like many of you and all teachers in this wonderful field, my number one priority was how do we continue to connect with kids? We all knew the personal struggles that we were going through, and we knew that our students and their families were also going to go through things. So I did an unoriginal idea, weekly check-ins through email and Google Form. Now, to continue to keep my students engaged in what was becoming a somewhat repetitive process, I came up with a creative idea. Rare for me, but I was happy to have it. We did a choose-your-own-adventure story throughout the course of the COVID shutdown. So as a band, we collectively chose a new prompt, even let students suggest their own prompts for future stories. I believe at some point we went from being in a countryside village to on a spaceship, but students are just so creative, aren't they? So after that, my next thing to figure out was how do we keep valid or somewhat comprehensive music instruction happening? It was hard for all of us to adjust to a digital learning environment, but making music together was really challenging, especially for our younger students who had only had a handful of lessons before we went remote. So we tried a lot of stuff. Some of it worked, some of it failed terribly. But we made sure as a department, and I have the best department around, I'd put them against anyone, that we were collaborating and finding a way to keep things alive. What you see up there is a picture of a Zoom lesson. Now, if you've ever had a Zoom meeting before, try to have everybody say hello at the same time. Now, try to have them play a song together. Now, add 62 people. So even that was not quite what we hoped for. So the next thing was we had to figure out a way that we could actually make music together that would be encouraging. Now, not for the first time in this presentation, I will tell you the one thing I want you to take away from this. My wife is better than me at almost everything. And she came up with this idea. She's a great music teacher up at Clarence of making music together while apart. So I did what every good educator did, and I stole it and put it on a nice background. So this became our motto as a department. How can we continue to find ways to make music together while apart? Because we were remote so long, I knew I needed to try new things and utilize that beautiful reflective educator model I learned when I was in college. What better way to think about reflective educating than to watch me try to surf? So in the summer of 2019, my wife and I went to Hawaii. I was going to say Halloween. We went to Hawaii. I am not nautically gifted. I think I got through maybe the second year swimming class, but in my bout of overconfidence, I decided, well, I'm going to try to surf. I'm sure it'll be fine. And as you can see, well, it was not. But like we all did during the pandemic and every day, I reflected on what went wrong. I tried again, and at least briefly I got up. Now, is this going to be on Sports Illustrated next week? Gosh, I hope not. And I will tell you, we paid a photographer to take these photos. He was an artist. I was probably up there for like 3 seconds before I was underwater again. I ended up miles away from where we started. I just walked on the beach with the surfboard. But for those brief moments, man, I looked cool. So this analogy comes up a lot. We as educators were trying to build a plane as it was flying in the air with people on it, but surprise, we'd never seen a plane before. That's what it felt like every single day. We piloted new technology programs that were supposed to let kids play together without any latency. Did not work for us. We researched schools that were finding a way to perform together simultaneously. Every kid had a broadband internet connection and a MacBook Pro. Wasn't possible for our district when we had just found a way to go one-to-one. I still remember grabbing Chromebooks and just trying to make sure every kid had something. Something I think we all saw as we began to get a peek into more and more of our students' home lives is the equity that a classroom provides was disappearing. Disparities were becoming more evident. Not only was it did they have a device or not, it was are they using their mom's phone for internet access? Can they only participate at class when they can drive to McDonald's to use the public Wi-Fi? So it became clear to me that any performance we were going to do could not be live and be of any quality that I thought the community would be somewhat accepting of. And these check-ins were coming in and students were getting hopeless. I'll be frank. I was starting to feel the creeping in of darkness. So I decided we're going to do a virtual performance. Now, the first step to this is choosing a piece. I had read enough about this that I knew it shouldn't be a masterwork of 15 to 20 minutes. It should be really, really short, like 60 seconds. Because not only were the students going to be learning how to do this, I had never done anything like this before, and I know enough about my limitations that I needed to be kind with myself through this learning process. So we chose a song that had a lot of inspirational meaning to our community, our fight song. I'm not going to sing it for you now, but I'll tell you, my wife and I go out to eat. People who've graduated in the class of 1968 come up to me and sing it to me. It's really something that's meant a lot to our area. So for every instrument, I recorded a play-along track. Because if I asked you right now, all on your phones, to record yourself singing Happy Birthday, you'd be starting and stopping at different times, going faster or slower, and the job of editing that together would probably put me into an early retirement, if not grave, as much as I love you all. So these playing tracks were vital, and we're going to show you one in a second. Then I had to think, what do the students need to succeed, and what do the parents need to succeed? All of you who had parents with kids at home during this time period know that motivation was an issue. To do a project like this where some of them have never recorded themselves before meant there had to be clear instructions. We made instruction videos, we held meetings with parents, we had documents for those who didn't want to see my face but were happy reading along. And then finally, how do you celebrate it? When you have a concert, you're used to hearing a thunderous applause, you're used to going out for ice cream afterwards, you're used to it being an event in your life. Best case scenario was this was going to be a 1 to 2 minute video that they were going to watch alone in their houses. So we tried to make it special by having a premiere party. We used the YouTube Premiere feature, we had zoomed in members of our community, and then we reached out to some local news stations. At this time, this would have been a month into remote instruction. Not many schools in Western New York had done virtual performances, so we were still hot and new. So we did get on Channel 4. Channel 7 did some wonderful interviews with my students and I, and all of a sudden, all this joy fills in. I made a time capsule for our students, so even today they can go back, watch the news coverage, read all the emails we got from the community. And I just want to show you what this would kind of look like. John, this is where I might need your help. Let's find out together. Oh, wait, it's working, John. So this is an example of one of the play-along tracks with the hippest PNG of headphones you've ever seen. If you try to make people play together, you need some way to synchronize the audio. So you're going to hear some wake-up beeps. There they are. Good morning, everyone. And then there'd be a metronome to help count the kids in. And then I did a digital scroll recording of each of their parts on the screen. Ah, MIDI instruments. So beautiful. Okay, so now, next step would be students would have to play their individual recordings, headphones in, send these files to me. Now, this is one of my great alumnus. Good morning. Owen Ludwig. I just want to show you his clip because I think you'll see he did some pretty interesting stuff with his. Yay, Owen, yay, Owen. I know he can't hear us, but I'm clapping in my heart. Thank you, yeah. Okay, I love seeing the student creativity. After I got that email, though, I did email his parents and say I feel like he should be editing this video, because at this point he had far more experience with the technology than I did. If you look closely, you'll see some other students had some creativity. See if you can find the percussionist using an Amazon box as a bass drum. But here was the final product for our first virtual performance. And thank heavens for copyright-free intro music. change was a bad idea. Ambitious, though. Did everyone find the Amazon box? Oh, man. All right, fine. There we go. Okay, so, hey, we succeeded. We got one. I bet students are on time to every class in this school. I'm telling you, that is a very prescient bell. So, time to reflect. What went well? Students, community, parents, thrilled. For a brief moment, we provided a little bit of hope. And then other thing was high student participation. Almost every student participated of the 60. I was very, very grateful for that. And the most important thing for me was it was a learning experience. This is also the first area I needed to improve. At this point, I was using iMovie and GarageBand to edit the audio and the video. You may notice that the rectangles were somewhat different in size. That's because I was dragging every video in, resizing it manually, and my computer was overheating constantly. I just had to dip it into an ice bath every 20 minutes. The audio editing features in GarageBand are great for a free program, but somewhat limiting. At times it sounded like we were, auto-tuning on a diss track or something. So I knew I had to expand. For future projects, I'm an Apple guy. I got Final Cut Pro, I got Logic. PC people, there's obviously Creative Suite. DaVinci is out there too. There's lots of great tools to use in the PC world too. But one of the other big things I realized is it had to be bigger. That's just the way we are as Americans. But I really wanted it to find a way to include our community and honor the people who were sacrificing so much for us. One of the reasons for that is, meanwhile, in my personal life, my wife and I were expecting our first child. Now, you may or may not remember at this time period, but there were periods when OBGYN offices were limiting who could be there. That sonogram you see, I wasn't there for it. I really wasn't there for most of the time where I could meet my daughter and see her in this way. During the time period that we were expecting, the hospital we were going to deliver at let us know that I probably would not be able to go in with my wife. Again, amazing woman. Take one thing away from this, but I can't imagine being in that situation of giving birth without some kind of support system. Now, luckily, everything worked out. About a month before my daughter was born, there was an edict made that women delivering could have a support person. And I was glad she chose me. I wasn't sure for a second, but she did. And my daughter, Eliza Pearl, is almost 4. She'll be 4 in July. Avid trombone listener, and really a snowman aficionado. But then down there's my wife again, and I'm sorry to keep talking about her, but I married up. As long as I have known Dana Bennett, she has believed that our life as human beings is to be in service to one another, that we have a goal to leave the world better than we found it. And gosh, if she's not convincing. From that moment forward, I knew that we had to do something as we were surrounded by these healthcare workers and these policemen and these food service staff and grocery workers who were keeping our society functioning. It wasn't enough for me to just have the kids play again. We had to do something to say thank you to them. So this is our next project that would take up about May and June of 2020. We partnered with an organization called Unison, Y-O-U, very creative, and they were trying to organize a Lean on Us Day, where people all around the world would arrange their own versions of Bill Withers' Lean on Me and do something special with it. So we got legal permission, just checking with all the copyright gods, we got legal permission to arrange it. It was my first time ever arranging anything for my students. And then we thought, how do we involve the community? So we met with the band officers, we came up with this idea to contact the hospitals, the grocery stores, and get as many pictures of their staff as we could. And then reach out to our school community and our extended Fredonia community and ask them to send in pictures of themselves holding thank you signs or mouthing thank you. At the end of the day, between performers, essential workers, and people saying thanks, we had over 400 people participate in this project. When I think back, when I think forward to my daughter learning about this time period in our lives in her history classes, and she asks me what we did, I cannot wait to show her, not what I did, but what my students did in our community of Fredonia. And I'll just show you a little bit of this. At the very least, you should see that I got a little tiny bit better at video editing. If I watch too long, I will start crying. So I'm going to keep moving on. But if this was the Disney movie, it would all be over after that, right? There'd be a happy ending. Everything would go back to normal. But we all know that's not what happened. I say again, 10 months is how long it took for our students to get back to in-person instruction in the high school. The whole time I was reminded of this quote from Buzz Aldrin. Keep in mind that progress is not always linear. It takes constant course correcting and often a lot of zigzagging. Unfortunate things happen, accidents occur, and setbacks are usually painful, but that does not mean we quit. No, it means we look at fun animated pictures of instruments. But certainly that's what happened for us. So we were still not able to give public performances or public ensembles in the first winter, the only winter of 2022. We did another virtual performance. We have a tradition at my school since long before I got there of inviting community members to play on stage with the high school band for a performance of Leroy Anderson's Christmas Festival. We did it virtually. We had over 100 people submit videos. You may even notice in the bottom right-hand corner, Santa himself sent in a clip. This was the one and only year I was on the nice list. And I will say, luckily, things changed. Sean already alluded to this a little bit, but eventually we could come back at 12 feet. So here's about half of my high school band at 12 feet in an auditorium. 4. I don't want you to hear them be out of tune. Was it perfect? No. Was it better? Yes, and that was enough. Then we could go to 6 feet, and we could finally have the whole band together. So we'd set up every day in the gym. Little time lapse here for you to see what that looked like. We would move percussion. We'd set up all the chairs and stands, all in about 38 minutes. We'd have to have everything set and gone. Was it perfect? No. Was it better? Yes. And then finally, we could do digital recording. I liked when we used the gym cam because you have a scoreboard at the bottom. We always won. Always nice to know. we, in the spring of 2021, could finally do a performance, but all recorded. We hired a company to come in with grant money, and we did all of our groups that way. And then really not until spring of 2022 were we back to performing in a somewhat normal fashion. My final thoughts on this are it's strange to present you on a technology that I never, ever, ever want to do again. The first attempt video took about 60 hours of editing, the subsequent ones over 100. Now that I have a child on the outside, I don't think I could do that again. Just be honest with you. But I will always be so grateful for the students and the families and the community members who bought into this. And I don't know if any of them will ever see this, but I'll say it every time I see them. Because at the end of the day, our program continued to thrive because of opportunities like this and other amazing things my colleagues did. At Fredonia, we're lucky, a school of 1,400 kids, 80% of our students take music classes. We've got about 70% of eligible students in ensembles, 900 in chorus, band, and orchestra. I know for a fact that if we had not found a way to make music together, while apart, thank you Dana, thank you my wife, that we would have been doomed. So I am thanking you all for being a good audience, but really the thank goes to all those people who took a chance and helped keep music alive in my community. So thank you very much for your time.